This happened just a few months ago. I was 45 and a single mother. My son Eric invited me to spend a weekend with his wife's family at their vacation home by a big lake. I was excited to finally get to know them better. But from the start, I felt uneasy. The cabin felt warm, but something was off. Everyone seemed friendly, but I sensed a darkness behind their smiles. During dinner, Eric kept glancing at the clock. I could feel my stomach twist. Outside, the trees swayed like they were sharing secrets. I tried to join the conversation, but every word felt like it slipped through my fingers. After dinner, Eric's phone rang. He stepped outside. I could hear his voice but couldn't catch much. Just a few odd phrases that made me feel more anxious. My heart raced as I listened. Something didn't sit right with me. When he returned, he laughed easily, but it felt forced. I wanted to pull him aside, but he waved me off. "It's fine, Mom," he said. The next morning I woke up to silence. I felt cold as I wandered through the rooms. Eric was gone. I called out for him. I could hear his in-laws outside, but their laughter felt twisted and foreign. I hesitated at the door, wanting to join them, but something held me back. I stepped outside, anxious. I called Eric's name again. The tall trees loomed above me, their branches dancing creepily. Inside me, panic started to bloom. I looked back at the cabin. Should I go back or keep searching? I decided to search. Hours passed. I couldn't find him. I approached his in-laws. They looked at me, their smiles fading. I asked them where Eric was. They exchanged strange glances, as if they knew something they weren't sharing. A lump formed in my throat as I repeated my question. "He'll be back," one of them finally said. "Just give him some time." I felt a wave of dread wash over me. I turned away and stepped outside again. The sky darkened and a storm brewed. The wind howled, making the lake look sinister. I wrapped my arms around myself, feeling cold and alone. I couldn't stop thinking about Eric. Where could he be? The laughter of his in-laws rang through the trees again, but it was louder, more unhinged. My heart raced. I glanced back at the cabin. What were they doing? I crouched down, trying to listen, but my mind was spinning. What if they knew? As night fell, I lay in bed, unable to sleep. I kept thinking, "Where are you, Eric?" Then came another sound. Someone was outside. I held my breath, clutching my phone. I peered through the window. It wasn't Eric. It was his family again, gathered by the trees, laughing wildly. I listened to their voices, and the fear enveloped me. They were too happy, too content. As I waited, I knew deep down I'd never find Eric. I wished I'd asked harder, but I felt so small and powerless. Then came a soft knock on the door. I felt my heart stop as that knock echoed in the room. It was soft, almost gentle, but my body was frozen. I couldn't bring myself to move. Who was it? Why were they knocking? My mind raced through a million horrible possibilities. Another knock, slightly louder this time. "Mom, are you there?" It was Eric. Relief flooded through me, but confusion quickly followed. Why had he taken so long? I rushed to the door, flinging it open. My heart sank. It wasn't Eric standing there, but his wife's brother, Michael. He looked disheveled and out of breath. "Hey," he said, glancing over his shoulder as if he expected something, or someone, to be following him. "I was looking for you." "Where's Eric?" My voice cracked as I demanded an answer. Michael hesitated. The look on his face told me he wasn't sure how to explain. He's fine. Just taking care of something." What are you talking about? Where has he been? Let's talk inside, he said, glancing nervously at the trees. I didn't want to let him in, but curiosity pulled me forward. I stepped aside, and he slipped into the cabin. I closed the door behind us, the weight of the world on my shoulders. What's wrong? Is he in danger? I pressed, desperate for answers. Michael paced the small room, hands running through his hair. It's not that simple. He's in a situation, an important one. I felt my stomach drop. What situation? Where did he go? Tension filled the room, and I fought against the dread clawing at my insides. There's something you need to understand, he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. Our family isn't what you think. There are things we do that— Things you do? I interrupted, feeling anger flare. What do you mean? He took a deep breath. I can't explain everything. Just trust me that Eric is safe, but he needs time. Right now, he's not himself. He's with the family, and they're preparing for something. Preparing? For what? My mind raced. What is happening out there? I shouldn't even be telling you this. Just know, it's better if he's not around right now. He'll come back when he's ready. Ready for what? I pressed, panic threading through my voice. Why should I trust you? Then came a noise outside. A scream cut through the air, sharp and piercing. We both jumped. It was distant but unmistakable. What was that? I shrieked. Michael's face paled. I think it's time we leave. He grabbed my wrist, pulling me towards the door. I pulled back, fear spiking. No, I need to find Eric. Trust me, he shouted. He's not ready for you yet. You have to go. I was filled with a mix of fear and determination. I couldn't just leave my son. That's when I heard it again. Louder now, the laughter of his family echoing through the trees, almost mocking. They were waiting for something I didn't understand. I turned to Michael. We need to get out of here, I said, scrambling for the door. But as I reached for the handle, I heard another voice from behind us, low and menacing. Leaving so soon? I froze. Someone was in the house. I turned slowly, my heart racing. The voice had a gravelly edge, filled with an unsettling calm. Standing in the shadows by the window was a figure. He was tall and broad, his features concealed in darkness, but I could see the glint of something metallic in his hand. Who are you? I demanded, more bravely than I felt. Just a friend of the family, he said, stepping into the faint light. His eyes glinted with a cruel amusement. You shouldn't have meddled, you know. Why are you here? Michael's voice trembled, glancing between me and the newcomer. He seemed to shrink under the weight of the man's presence. Let me put it simply, the man said, smirking. You've gotten in the way of our plans. And that means you both need to stay put. I felt a rush of fear. The laughter from outside grew louder, filling the air with a dread I couldn't shake. I couldn't let myself be trapped here. I had to find a way out. Michael, we need to leave, I whispered urgently, taking a step back towards the door. But I felt like I was moving in slow motion, my instincts screaming for escape. Michael shook his head, his eyes wide. It's not safe. Shut up, the man hissed, packing a far more threatening tone. Or you'll regret it. With every second that passed, I could feel an unseen clock ticking, alerting me of a looming disaster. I knew I wouldn't last long against this man, whatever he was. Get away from us, I shouted, my voice cracking. Such fire, but you really don't understand how dark this place can be. Simple moms haven't a clue what lies just outside their door. What are you talking about? I spat, but my heart sank under the weight of his words. That laugh echoed once more from the trees, sending chills rippling through my spine. I felt suddenly small and helpless, plucked from safety as the world morphed into a nightmare. I needed to regain control. "Let's just talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I don't want trouble. Where is Eric?" The man stepped closer, and I could see the blade he held now, its edge sharp and glinting under the cabin's light. "You're going to find out soon enough," he said, dropping his voice, almost a purr. "But until then, just stay quiet, or the next laugh you hear won't be so far away." Michael took a step forward, eyes pleading. "No, don't do this." But in the few seconds that followed, I made a decision. I had to distract him, to create a moment to escape. I turned to the side, pretending to stumble against a chair. "Watch out!" I yelled, throwing myself towards the back of the cabin, watching as his eyes went wide for just a moment. It was all the opening I needed. I dashed for the door, feeling adrenaline spike through me. But as I flung it open, I was met by the chaos outside. The laughter had turned into something darker. A chant, possibly, echoing through the trees. Michael hesitated behind me, torn between loyalty and fear. But I couldn't wait. I felt the urgency of flight coursing through me. "Come on!" I yelled, and together we burst into the night, chased by that man's dark promise. But as we sprinted into the woods, a shadow loomed ahead, blocking our path. I skidded to a halt, my breath catching. There was no way out. And then everything went dark. I came to with a jolt, breathless and disoriented. The world around me was a thick darkness, heavy and suffocating. My heart raced as I scrambled to my feet, every nerve ending screaming for escape. "Michael?" I called, my voice barely above a whisper. Panic clawed at my throat when there was no response. I blinked, trying to make sense of the shadows enveloping me. Suddenly I spotted a faint light flickering in the distance. Hope surged within me like electricity. I took a cautious step forward, inching closer to the glow. "Michael!" I shouted again, more desperate this time. "Are you there?" No answer. Just silence. I pushed through the underbrush, branches scraping my skin. The flickering light grew brighter, and I could make out a clearing ahead. My gut twisted with a sense of foreboding as I moved deeper into the unknown, the laughter in the trees now echoing in my ears. A mocking reminder of the danger still lurking out there. Finally I broke free into a small clearing, a fire crackling in the center, casting eerie shadows around. That's when I saw it. Figures circled the flames, their faces obscured, their movements rhythmic and strange. Chanting. I felt my stomach drop as I realized what I'd stumbled into. Something dark, something wrong. They wore masks, each one grinning, teeth sharpened under the glow of the fire. Just then, I heard rustling behind me. I spun around, my heart hammering in my chest. The tall man had found me. His eyes glinted in the darkness, sharp and calculating as he stepped into the clearing. "Welcome," he said, his voice smooth, yet edged with malice. "You found the fun, after all." "No!" I nearly screamed, backing away. "Where is Michael? What do you want from us?" The man shrugged, a disinterested smile forming. "Oh, you'll see him soon enough. But first, we're going to have a little party. One where you learn just how deep the darkness runs." The encircling figures began to sway, their chants growing louder, almost hypnotic. I felt the ground shift beneath me, an urge to join them pricking at my mind. I fought against it, shaking my head violently. "Don't!" I shouted, my voice cracking. "Let him go!" As if responding, a figure from the edge of the clearing lunged forward, dragging Michael, bound and disoriented, into the flickering light. Relief mixed with dread as I caught his gaze, fear radiating from his wide eyes. Get away from him! I whipped around, facing the man with a renewed fierceness. But the figures moved closer, closing the gap, a wall of malice surrounding us. Every choice has consequences, he said, a cruel smile creeping across his face. And tonight, you'll both learn that lesson. The chant grew deafening. I felt a twisting sensation in my chest, as if the air itself was snatching my will to fight. I needed to act, to grab hold of the last vestiges of my courage. But the darkness pushed against me, heavy and suffocating. Then, from behind, I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps rushing into the clearing. The laughter faded as new figures broke through the trees, a glimmer of hope sparking in the chaos. "Run!" I screamed at Michael, but the chant rose higher, drowning out my voice as something sinister loomed on the edges of the firelight. I hadn't just stumbled into danger. I had just uncovered a nightmare. The figures froze at the sound of the footsteps, their chanting faltering. My heart pounded in my chest, torn between fear and the glimmer of hope that had just arrived. A flicker of determination ignited within me. "Michael!" I shouted again, trying to keep my voice steady. The tall man moved closer, his confident demeanor wavering for just a second. I seized the moment, putting myself between him and my brother. "Get away from him!" I yelled, forcing my voice through the impending dread. The crowd of masked figures shifted, exchanging glances, a murmur of confusion rippling through them. Then, the new arrivals stepped into the firelight. Relief flooded me when I recognized them. Tom and Jenna, my friends. They looked just as disoriented but filled with urgency. "We're here to help," Jenna shouted, her eyes scanning the chaotic scene. Before I could respond, the tall man lunged unexpectedly, reaching for me. I ducked, feeling the rush of air as I narrowly dodged his grasp. In that split second, I glanced back at Michael. He was struggling against his bonds, his face pale but determination flashing in his eyes. "Grab him!" I shouted to Tom and Jenna, desperation clawing at my throat. They rushed in, but the figures surrounding us began to chant again, louder this time, their collective voices merging into a cacophony that filled the clearing. The oppressive force of their words pressed against me, heavy and suffocating. The masked figures closed ranks, dancing around the fire with an increasing fervor. The flames flickered wildly, casting grotesque shadows that flicked unpredictably across the trees. I felt a pull, a dark force urging me to join their ritual. No, I had to resist. "Stay strong, Lisa!" Tom yelled from the edge of the circle, his voice breaking through the chaos. The tall man regained his composure, his eyes narrowing as he assessed our predicament. "You think you can interrupt our ceremony?" he sneered. "This will only end in disaster for you." I measured my words carefully, summoning the last bits of courage. "We're not afraid of you. We'll stop this." It sparked something in the crowd. Some of the figures began to waver, their chants faltering. I saw a gap in their circle forming. A chance. "Michael, hold on!" I shouted, running toward him. I could see fear flickering in his eyes, but he nodded, recognizing the urgency. The tall man lunged again, but this time I was ready. I dodged and grabbed the rope binding Michael's wrists. The knot was tight, but desperation fueled me. I pulled at it, my fingers fumbling as I fought the expectation of failure. And then, suddenly, I heard a low growl emerge from the shadows, a sound that mingled with the chants. The clearing fell silent. All eyes turned toward the forest's edge, where something was moving. A dark shape emerging. "Run!" I screamed, adrenaline shoving every ounce of fear aside. The figures looked confused. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through them. I yanked the rope harder, finally feeling it give. Michael was free, but we didn't have time to celebrate. The growl intensified, resonating through the clearing like a storm, and I felt the ground shake. "Go!" I urged Michael, pulling him back toward Jenna and Tom. The tall man's expression twisted into rage, but I didn't look back. We sprinted into the trees, bolstered by the hope of escape. But as the shadows deepened around us, I could hear it. The sound of something hunting in the dark. Whatever was following us didn't seem to care about the party anymore. Fear clawed at my throat as we ran for our lives, and my mind raced. What had I unleashed? Would we make it out alive? The dark shape behind us lunged, and I knew we had only moments before everything spiraled into chaos again. We dashed through the underbrush, branches snagging at our clothes. I could hear Michael's ragged breaths next to me, and I felt a surge of protectiveness merge with fear. We couldn't let whatever was chasing us catch up. It was then that I glanced behind us, even though I knew I shouldn't. The tall man was right there, not far behind us, his shadow stretching ominously in the firelight. But he wasn't alone. The dark shape we'd sensed in the forest was following too, an agility that no human could match. "Faster!" I yelled, pushing myself harder. I could barely keep up with my own panic, but I forced my legs to move. Ahead, I spotted a fallen tree, an opportunity to slow our pursuers. "Over there!" I pointed, and we veered off course. We jumped over the tree and stumbled into a small clearing. I turned to catch my breath and assess our next move. Heavy silence engulfed us, broken only by the rustling leaves. Where was the growling? The figure? Had we lost them? I gulped air, my mind racing. "We need a plan," I said urgently, looking at Tom and Jenna. They both nodded, visibly shaken but focused. "We can't just stay here," Jenna blurted. "That thing could find us." Then suddenly a faint howl rippled through the night air. It sent chills down my spine. I turned back toward Michael, who was gazing wide-eyed at the dark tree line. "We can't go back," he whispered. "What if they're waiting for us?" I opened my mouth to reassure him, but I was interrupted. The growl came again, closer this time. My insides twisted. "We need to hide now," I urged, scanning for any cover. Just then I spotted a narrow gap between two bushes, leading into the thicket. "Quick, in there!" I hissed, pushing Michael first. Tom and Jenna followed closely, and I squeezed in behind them, holding my breath. We were wedged tight, tangled in branches, but I could hear their labored breathing. The howling echoed again, but it was joined now by the sound of footsteps, heavy and deliberate. My heart raced as I peered through the leaves. I caught a glimpse of the tall man, and then the dark figure behind him, a sight that sent icy dread coursing through my veins. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen. It had long limbs, fur that blended seamlessly into the night, and eyes that glowed with an unnatural light. I couldn't tell if it was more wolf than man, but one thing was clear. It was hunting us. I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes. We had unearthed something terrible, and now it was looming dangerously close. The tall man gestured with a gloved hand, the final confirmation that they had some kind of control over the creature. "Search the area," he commanded, his voice cold. At that moment I realized the growing risk of our situation. They were prepared, and we were mere pawns in their game. As the hunt intensified, I knew it wouldn't be long before they found us. That's when I saw it. Not a dead end, but a flicker of movement among the trees a little further away. It looked like another figure. "Look," I whispered to my friends, pointing frantically. But what appeared was uncertain and shadowy. To me it felt like salvation. Or maybe another trap. No time to think. all I could do was hope. With a nod, I signaled everyone to stay quiet and inch forward, hearts pounding as we slipped farther into the darkness. We pressed ourselves back against the damp earth as the tall man's voice drifted closer. I held my breath, trying to filter out the chaos and focus on the flickering shadow I'd seen. It loomed larger now, and I felt a mixture of fear and desperate hope. "Do you see it?" I whispered to Jenna, my voice almost inaudible. She squinted into the darkness, nodding slowly. "Maybe it's someone who can help us," she replied, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and curiosity. But before I could respond, the heavy footsteps sounded again, much nearer this time. The growling creature moved closer, its breath hot and tangible in the chilly air. I could sense its hunger, a primal instinct radiating from the dark. "Stay still," I urged, praying the underbrush was enough to keep us hidden. The dark figure swerved, sniffing the air. Panic prickled at my skin, and I slammed my eyes shut, willing myself to disappear. Suddenly, a rustling to the left caught my attention. I opened my eyes to see the flickering shadow moving into clearer view. It was smaller than I thought. Another person. They stepped out from behind the thick trunks, but I couldn't make out their face in the dark. "Over here," the figure said quietly, beckoning us with a hand. I glanced back at my friends. Should we trust this person? I felt a wave of uncertainty, but time was not on our side. The growling was mixing with the low hum of the tall man's orders, and it was only a matter of moments before they would discover our hiding spot. "Let's go," I whispered urgently, grabbing Michael's arm and pulling him forward. The others followed, slipping out into the open. The figure stepped fully into view, revealing a young woman with a determined look on her face. "Follow me," she said breathlessly, glancing over her shoulder. "I know a way out." Without waiting for our nods of agreement, she turned and dashed deeper into the thicket. We followed as best as we could, trying to match her pace while staying vigilant for the horrors behind us. The darkness was like a living entity, enfolding us as we maneuvered through the trees. I felt the weight of fear in my chest, but the hope of escape propelled me forward. The howling echoed again, closer than before. It was clear they were onto us. "This way," the young woman called ahead, leading us down a narrow path that twisted like a serpent through the woods. Our hearts thudded as we pressed on, each step feeling more desperate than the last. Just when I thought we might escape, I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps breaking branches behind us, moving fast and relentlessly. "Run!" I shouted. We pushed ourselves harder, limbs aching, breath ragged, but something told me to keep my eyes on the woman ahead. She glanced back, urgency flashing across her features. "You have to trust me." Then I saw it. Glowing eyes emerging from the shadows, a flash of fur darting toward us. The creature was close now, and I could hear its growl growing more feral. My heart sank. It wasn't just us fleeing anymore. The hunt had escalated. I had no idea who this woman was, but I was about to learn just how deep this nightmare went. Suddenly she stopped at a small cave entrance, urging us inside. "Quick!" she hissed. As we dove into the cool darkness of the cave, a new wave of fear washed over me. I could hear the creature stop outside, sniffing, waiting. We might have found a temporary refuge, but I'd never felt more trapped. "Now what?" Tom gasped, trying to steady his breathing. "Now we wait," the woman replied, her voice low and steady. "They'll come for you, but we need to be ready." In that moment, I realized two things. This wasn't over, and survival meant facing an enemy that was far more dangerous than I ever imagined. The cave felt like a tomb. Cold air wrapped around us, and the silence was heavy. I peered into the dark, trying to spot any signs of movement outside. The woman paced in front of us, her eyes darting to the entrance. I could sense her anxiety. "What do you mean they'll come for us?" I asked, my voice shaking. The thought of whatever was outside sent chills down my spine. "They're hunting you. You don't know yet, but they'll stop at nothing." Her words dripped with urgency. "They can smell fear." I swallowed hard. "Who are they?" She hesitated before answering. "Not just animals. They're connected to a group, a cult trying to capture strong emotions. Fear, pain, despair, whatever makes you feel alive. They feed on them." I looked at my friends. Confusion and fear played across their faces. "This is insane," Jenna said quietly, shaking her head. "We just need to get out of here." "Listen," the woman interrupted, bringing her attention back to us. "We can't let them find us. If they do—" She took a deep breath, collecting herself. "We need to have a plan. Stay quiet, and don't panic." Outside, the growling had stopped. My heart raced. Had they lost our scent? That's when I noticed a series of scratches on the cave wall. It looked like something had clawed its way inside. My breath caught at the thought. "What was that?" I whispered, pointing. The young woman turned. "It's them. They'll try to lure us out." Her eyes darkened. "Just stay strong. Don't listen to their calls." Suddenly a soft voice whispered from outside, low and melodic. "Help me. Please." It was chilling. My stomach dropped. "Don't listen," the woman urged, pressing her back against the wall. I wanted to close my ears, but the sound echoed in my mind. It was so inviting. "Guys, we can't just stand here," Tom muttered, looking between us. "We should see what's going on." I gripped his arm. "No, what if it's a trap?" But it was too late. He pushed toward the entrance, curiosity winning over fear. "Tom, wait," I cried out. But the darkness swallowed my warning. As he stepped into the dim light outside, I could see him pause, captivated by the voice. "It's—" The growling erupted again, savage and primal, cutting through the night. "Get back!" the woman shouted, lunging forward to pull him back into the cave. Tom stumbled back inside just as a dark shape lunged at the entrance. Its glowing eyes pierced through the night. I barely had time to process the menace before it barreled into the cave. Panic surged through me. "What do we do?" I shouted. The woman's eyes were fierce now, filled with determination. "Fight or run! We have to get out of here!" Before I could make sense of her words, the creature lunged, and instinct kicked in. We braced ourselves, facing whatever horror awaited us. And then, everything went dark. I jolted awake, gasping for breath. The cave was still dark, but this time, silence surrounded us. I blinked, trying to shake off the disorientation. My heart pounded in my chest. Where had the creature gone? I turned to my friends. Tom lay on the ground beside me, his eyes wide and fearful. Jenna was near the entrance, trembling as she awaited the shadows outside to move again. The woman looked at me, her expression unwavering. "Are we safe?" I croaked, trying to keep my voice steady. "For now," she replied. "But we need to move. They won't give up easily." "Move? Where?" I asked, panic creeping into my voice again. "The cave is all we have." Her lips tightened into a thin line. "We need to find another exit. This cave leads somewhere else. I felt it." I felt a surge of disbelief. "And what if we find something worse?" "We can't stay," she insisted. "They'll come back. We've already made too much noise." With a nod, I helped Tom to his feet, while Jenna brushed dirt off her clothes. I felt the lingering dread settle in the pit of my stomach. Each step away from our little alcove felt like a betrayal to our safety. We moved further into the cave, the damp walls growing close around us. I could hear the echo of our footsteps, breaking the stillness that had returned. The woman led the way, glancing back constantly, scanning the dark for threats. I hoped perhaps we would find an exit before it was too late. As we walked deeper, my eyes caught glimpses of odd shapes etched into the stone walls. The scratching I'd seen earlier had turned into symbols, swirling and coiling like snakes. "What are those?" I whispered, unease crawling up my spine. "They're warnings," the woman said. "They mark territory. The deeper you go, the more dangerous it becomes." I exchanged a look with Jenna, who was visibly pale. "Maybe we should just head back. At least we know what's out there," she suggested hesitantly. The woman shook her head. "We won't make it back in time. We have to keep moving." I opened my mouth to speak when a low growl echoed from the entrance, reverberating against the cave walls. My heart froze. They were coming. "Run!" the woman shouted, turning and sprinting down the dark passageway. Fear propelled us forward, my legs pumping rapidly as I chased after her. The growling intensified, joined by other, higher-pitched sounds that twisted my gut with terror. The darkness seemed to thicken around us, blinding me to what lay ahead. Suddenly, the ground beneath me dropped away. I stumbled, arms flailing before I caught myself against the wall. My breath was ragged, and panic seized my chest. I turned back to the others, but they were still in motion. Then I heard it. A voice, calling out into the dark. "Help me!" The sound was familiar, a chilling echo from before. It twisted my thoughts. It was a trap, I told myself. But I felt my body betray me as I stepped closer to the edge, drawn by that haunting plea for help. "Don't!" the woman yelled. "They're trying to pull you away. Stay with us." But my mind was drifting. I looked down into the abyss. That's when I saw it. An outline, something waiting below, whispering promises that made my skin crawl. I took a shaky breath. Was this it? Would I be lost forever? Everything felt staggeringly surreal, caught in an abyss between reality and the horrors embedded within these dark walls. The voice was insistent, enticing, wrapping me in its grasp. I fought against it, yet I felt like I was teetering on the very edge of consciousness. "Lisa!" The woman broke through the veil, her tone sharp as glass. "Listen to me. Don't give in." Her words cut through the fog. With a single desperate cry, I yanked myself back from the brink, collapsing onto the cave floor. The sound of the growl escalated behind me, crushing any certainty I'd held onto. "Move!" I heard Michael shout, urgency igniting a flicker of survival inside me. My heart pounded as we scrambled to our feet, the flicker of something dark now pooling at the entrance. The woman took charge, guiding us forward deeper into the cave, where the darkness coiled like smoke. As we ran, I dared one last glance over my shoulder. The silhouette of the tall man was illuminated faintly against the entrance, the creature prowling just behind him, a shadowy mass with eyes that glowed unnaturally amid the darkness. We turned a corner, plunging into a narrow tunnel that felt claustrophobic, cold stone pressing against my back as we moved through it. My breaths came in desperate gasps. Fear and adrenaline mingled within me, urging me to continue. "Just a little further," the woman called out, her voice unwavering despite the chaos behind us. The passage twisted, branches forming off into unknown paths. I felt a steady but relentless grip of dread. "How do you know where to go?" I asked, trying to ground myself in the moment, hoping my question masked the panic within. "I've been here before," she said. "I know how to find the way out." We rounded another bend, and in the distance I spotted the soft glimmer of daylight peeking through the stone. Hope flared briefly, but I knew it wouldn't be easy. Whatever hunted us would not give up without a fight. "Keep going!" Michael shouted, his steps echoing in my ears as we pressed on. But just then, a heavy thud resonated throughout the cave. They were gaining on us. "Run!" the woman yelled, her urgency infectious. We pushed forward, hearts racing, feet pounding against the rock as we finally reached the exit. Light flooded the tunnel, harsh and welcoming. But just as freedom was within grasp, the howling filled my ears. Closer now, primal and fierce. "Almost there!" The woman lunged for the opening and we followed suit, spilling out into the world beyond. I felt the cool, fresh air wrap itself around me like a lifeline. But the danger was not over yet. The clearing was eerily quiet as we stumbled into the woods. But the menace lingered, an invisible shroud covering the trees. I glanced around, breathless. The night was alive with the echoes of what we'd escaped, the shadows relentless and hungry. "We need to keep moving," the woman urged, looking nervously back at the cave entrance. "Wait." I turned to Michael and Jenna. "What if they follow us here? Do you think we can survive stuck in there?" The woman snapped, and I could see the glimmer of something fierce hidden behind her panic. We needed to keep moving away. "Which way?" Jenna's voice trembled as she scanned the unfamiliar woods. Without thinking, I started down a narrow path that wound away from the cave, cutting through the thick trees. "Just follow me!" I called, and without waiting to hesitate, we followed, knowing that our lives depended on it. For what felt like an eternity, we pushed deeper into the forest, powered by urgency and fear. Each gust of wind felt like a whisper against my neck, reminding me of the horrors we had faced. As the trees began to thin, we stumbled upon a small clearing, the moon shining down brightly. But before we could catch our breath, I heard a sound that froze me in place. Footsteps, urgent but stealthy, circling us from the edges of the trees. Then I saw them, a handful of masked figures flitting between the shadows, their movements eerily coordinated. They were tracking us. Panic surged again as we quickly formed a huddle, hearts racing. The woman cursed under her breath, glancing around for options. "We're not safe yet," she murmured, scanning the area. "What are they waiting for?" I whispered, my voice trembling, and that's when the uncertainty sank deeper. Was this a game to them? Were we pawns in whatever monstrous ritual they had planned? A booming laugh echoed through the trees, a harsh and taunting sound that wrapped around us, suffocating and rich with dread. "Run! Scatter!" the woman shouted, propelling us into motion again. But even as we ran, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wouldn't be over. Deep in my gut, I sensed that the darkness had not yet revealed its true intent. A dread surrounded us that felt thick as mud, pulling us into the depths of madness. And just like that, all the questions I had started to fade, leaving only dread, uncertainty, and the unmistakable feeling that something had shifted within me. I didn't just want to survive. I wanted to understand this. But as the shadows closed in, I realized the true darkness ran deeper than any of us could comprehend. I could still hear the faint call echoing in the recesses of my mind, a whisper that made me question if escape would ever come, both from the chains of the night and from whatever horror was lurking just beyond. In that moment, I knew things would never be the same again.